everyone.
messy.
Yeah, let's get messy. Let's get dirty. Yes, messy, messy, messy. Welcome back.
Welcome
to If You
back.
Agree. Yes, welcome back. Welcome back. We are, let's just dive right in. We are so excited to have our very good friend on the podcast today, an actor. They're a writer on Big Mouth and Human Resources, involved in so much in the industry, baby. Multi hyphenate, social justice advocate, author of You Gotta Be You, and of host of the new podcast, Tell Me Something Messy, Brandon Kyle Goodman.
Yay!
Yay! Welcome, lovely. How are
Thank you. I'm so well. I'm happy to see your faces.
I know.
We're
It's been
so
so
happy to see
long.
yours. Forever and a day.
I know.
We're fixing
seriously.
that right now.
I know. We are finally. It's good to see you, even if through the internet. We'll just have to figure that out in person.
Yes.
Well, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on. We're so excited to have you here.
excited
And
to be
obviously, I mean, you just hear for our listeners. I mean, I'm certain all of our listeners know who you are, but just the list of accolades. I mean, you truly do it all. You do it all.
Literally.
I try, girl. You know, you gotta keep the money coming in somehow.
Yeah.
You gotta just do it all, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, the most impressive, I mean, in my mind, is a book, because I'm like, oh my god, you put so many words on the page.
Like, wrote.
Yeah.
I mean,
insane.
even reading a book is
Yeah,
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot, right?
writing one is like work.
Yeah. See, very much that. Very much
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I can't even scribble in a journal anymore. I start writing, my hand gets tired.
So,
with
yeah, the
pen.
arthritis of it all. My hands get super tight when I journal as well.
Mm.
But I like the little notes app, the text.
Yes,
you know.
yes. I was gonna say the most writing I did this week was I like. My God, I actually can't even read it. I mean, I would die if I read it. But it was like I was like feeling super depressed on my couch the other night, and I was just like, I'm just gonna write this little like thing that I'm thinking of in my mind, and it was so dramatic.
A song?
No. It was just this like little like kind of like I don't know, a poem. I don't know, some thoughts on paper. And when I was writing it, I was like, wow, this is so beautiful, and this is so true to who I am, and like to how I'm feeling in this moment.
Yeah.
I read it the next morning. I was like, you dumb bitch. Like no. Like if anyone ever said this, I would-
Darkness.
Yeah.
That
The
happened.
rain hits the window pane.
Yeah. I was
The
like,
pain in my heart.
I'll see you there.
Pain.
Listen, that's me when I like write when I'm high
Yeah.
and I'm stoned. I like write. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. And the
Yeah.
next day I read it. I'm like, girl, what?
Yeah.
They pay you
You're
to
like,
write. This
there's
is
something
terrible.
there. There's something there. You got
There's something there.
You just gotta get high again and be like, okay, we're back. We're
Yes,
totally-
yes, workshopping.
Yeah.
We're workshopping.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's the endless cycle of getting
Right.
high.
Creativity.
Yeah, you're like, well, I gotta get back to her somehow.
Well,
Yeah.
I gotta keep smoking if I'm
Yeah.
going
Not
anywhere.
man.
Well, we are so happy to have you on here, and there's obviously so much we want to cover. As we know, you've done so much, and we're so honored to have you here. And basically,
So inspired by you.
So inspired, like so
babes.
inspired. I mean, just not only through what you've been able to do, but also just kind of what you put out into the world. And I know that there's
Your
like a lot of-
energy.
your energy,
Just
is-
even like in person, so kind
my
every time. It's
God.
like even like when you popped up on this, what is this called? Riverside. Where we're recording. Even just like such a bright light. So
Oh,
thank you again
y'all.
for being
Can
here.
you just walk around the world with me and just
Yes. Oh
on
my
my
God,
shoulders?
happily,
Just-
happily.
You need some
girl,
compliments?
girl, I got the time. I have nothing but time.
Maybe.
Yeah. I'll do it as an unpaid internship.
There you go.
But no, so I mean, obviously we want to talk about so many specific things, but why don't you tell our audience a little bit about you and about your journey, and then about where you are now and kind of how you
Yeah.
got here.
Well, what am I? That's such a deep,
It's a large question.
complicated thing. But ultimately, I like to say that I'm an artist. So in whatever form, whatever medium it happens, my whole thing is, love, compassion, joy, safety, and being a representative of queerness, blackness, and black queerness in kind of whatever space I show up in. That's really what's important to me. But also sex is very important to me. And sex as a vehicle to talk about liberation. Because I do think that sex is really where we can talk about our bodies, our identities, and all these kind of labels that get thrown on us really come up in the bedroom or in sexual interactions. And so I like to talk about sex because it's funny and fun, but then you get to the heart of things, which is how much do you love yourself? How much are you caring about yourself? And so I write on TV, I write books, I write on Substack, I make videos, I host podcasts, I host a e-news situation. Like I'll just listen wherever I'll be wherever anyone will let me talk or write, I will be there. I'm on this podcast, like girl, I'll show up wherever. But yeah, to just like spread the word and do my art is really ultimate. I'm also doing a stage show, which I'm very excited about, called Ho Church, which I'm doing in New York at the end of the year, which will be all about my my journey to sexual liberation. There's a pussy puppet, a butthole puppet, who are going to teach you about how to identify your turn-ons, bima, body, environment, mood, accoutrements. There's a his name is Floppy, but he's an emotional penis who only gets hard when he's emotionally connected. He's really turned on by pee, but can't figure out how to talk about sex. So, just like like a Mr. Rogers meets, I don't know, Pee Wee Herman meets Wendy Williams.
Yeah,
the
I
icons.
love that.
Yeah,
that's incredible. That's and so will that be your kind of first? I mean, I know that obviously there's a lot of like the writing and the acting and the performing and whatnot. Will that be kind of like your first solo like on a stage venture?
It won't. I before I got to LA and before I got into kind of the Hollywood proper, I was doing theater and stage shows. So I did a lot of solo shows when I was living in New York, and then I got to LA and TV pays better than the stage. So I got, into the TV of it all. And then when the strikes happened, I had this, the writer strike happened first and the actor strike happened after. And I just had this, I guess, let's call it a come to Jesus or a revelation that was, we become disposable if we are not making the powers that be money, and that all of our art is made in the framework of how much money can you make, and that ultimately really isn't art. Like you can't be creatively free. It's art, but like you can't be as creatively free if you are also now navigating a bunch of execs who are telling you this has to be and that has to be. But stage has always been the place where you could just fucking play. And I realized that I hadn't had that opportunity to play since college. Like when you're in college, I went to school for drama. And so when you're in school, you just like do whatever. I mean, you see some great shit, you see some terrible shit, but it's just like people just making art, right? And no one's like trying to make money off of it. They're just creating. And I was like, I haven't had that freedom since school, and that's kind of depressing. And so I reached out to this theater company and some friends that I knew from back in the day, and I was like, I just want to come and play, and they gave me the opportunity to do that. And so I put up this thing last year, and now we're building it into a full thing, but it's all rooted in I want to take ownership over my life and over my creativity and my artistry. As you both know, like we're always turning out content where, you're navigating people in the comments and there's a lot more quantity over quality and you're feeding the beast. And that really, I think, can take a toll on the artist spirit. And so I think that there are ways in which we can do that and, pay our bills and, be out in the world. But how do you also then go back to the little kid who saw a movie and wanted to do that, right? The little kid who, listened to Beyonce and was like, I want to be that. Like, how do you take care of that version of yourself again? And so that's what this show is for me.
Oh, that's incredible.
And could you share what you think that is, or
how to
do that?
Yeah, it's going to be a really I had asked somebody about this, about sex, Emily Nagoski, who wrote Come As You Are, and she was like, it's going to be a really boring answer about how to figure out yourself, and it's mindfulness. And I think that's across the board. It's like, how are you taking the time to sit with yourself? What is your meditation practice? And I don't mean like sitting in a corner and like going, if that's your vibe, that's your vibe. But I say that like meditation can be watching a Whitney Houston video, right? It can be, taking a walk. It can be spending time with your friends. But like, what is your way of finding your stillness? So you can really be curious about what makes you tick, what brings you happiness. I think a lot of us are moving on default. We're just like on default mode and we're just kind of doing what's put in front of us without actually taking agency and being like, wait, does this bring me joy? Just because this is profitable, or just because like people are validating me here, is it actually what brings me joy? And so taking the time to ask the really scary questions and get the answers, and not with judgment. It's always a gentle interrogation, but I think that's how you start. It's like, what makes me happy? And a lot of that too, I think you can go back to your childhood, and you can go, you know, my book starts with this question: who would I be if society never got its hands on me? And that is a governing question of my life. So before your family told you who you were, community told you who you were, the internet told you who you were, who were you? What did you like? Did you like to draw? Did you like playing with clay? Did you like, you know, dressing up? Like, what were the things that you enjoyed? And can you reclaim some of that? And that, I think, is a breadcrumb to figuring out what makes you happy.
Yeah.
T.
Wow.
You are so well spoken.
Yeah, you came ready.
I'm like literally just like staring like.
Yeah, I'm like, just keep talking.
Exactly.
Yeah, just keep talking.
So good.
Yeah.
And real quick, going back to earlier what you said, maybe I don't even know how to recognize my turn-ons. What did you classify them in?
Oh, turn-ons. Yeah, I use this. So the bima, which is it's an actual word that means like kind of a pulpit, or like it's found in church. It's
in
like
Judaism
where
too.
yes, exactly.
Bima, yeah.
And I think in ancient Greece, it was like where the person would just orate to a group of people. So bima, I break it down. My acronym is B for body. So what are the turn-ons on your body? You like your neck kissed, you like, you know, your ears licked, you like your nipples sucked. Environment, where do you like to have sex? Is it in the bedroom? Is it the alleyway? Is it the kitchen? Alleyway is cool too, baby. Yeah. It's okay, you know. Love it. M, which is for mood. So I need a playlist. I need a scented candle. I need, you know, I need decorations. Like, what are the things that you want? And the accoutrements, which are like, I need, you know, a dildo, or I like toys, or I want a blindfold, or I want handcuffs. Like, I think if you can start to work in those categories, you can start to figure out what are your, because a lot of people, you ask them what their turn-ons are, and they're like, I don't know, having my ass eaten. It's like, yeah, we all like our ass eaten, or we like our dick sucked. But like, there's more to your sex than like penetration. There's more to your sex than, you know, a dick in your mouth, which is lovely. I love it. But, you know.
Not to knock it.
No, I'm not knocking it. That's great. It's beautiful. But, you know, you also, do you want that SZA playlist, or do you want Sasha Keeble, or do you want, you know, Blackpink? Like, what do you want playing in the background is also equally as important as how much you want dick in your mouth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sickening.
I mean, yeah.
I love
it's you know, Julian, I'm kind of glad you brought it back to that, because also after what you were just saying, kind of about, you know, coming back to you and mindfulness and whatnot, I think there's like there's a huge correlation there that I'm thinking about just personally, to make it about myself. Is that I feel like so much of something that I'm also struggling with in my own life right now is like this: who am I? Like what. It just like, I feel like when you go through like a large change in your life, there is that question of like, well, what makes me happy? Also kind of like when you're with someone for a very long time and that person leaves, who am I without that person?
Yeah.
And who am I? What do I like? What brings me joy and whatnot? And I feel like something that I really appreciate that you were saying is that I feel like a lot of the time when that happens, people are like, well, you know, you have to be able to it's basically this, you know, you're supposed to be able to sit down with yourself and you can live with yourself and you're happy with yourself and, you know, you don't need anything around you. It's just you and you, which I completely agree with. And I think that's a wonderful thing, but also something that I've always, you know, found a little frustrating in that is that so much of what brings me, like Nick Lehman specifically, joy is like being surrounded by other people, listening to Beyonce, going to the gym, listening to this podcast on the walk, blah, 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 blah. It's not just that moment of sitting alone with myself where I'm like, okay, well, I feel entirely me. I feel most me when I'm like surrounded by the people that I love, having a good time, listening to Beyonce, you know, doing this and that. And I think something that I really appreciate that we were saying, and it's gotten me huge thinking, especially in this moment in my life, is that it's nice to be able to not feel like you have to be yourself by other people's standards.
Say that again, Nick.
Be yourself by other people's standards.
You do not have to be yourself by other people's standards. Absolutely.
And I feel like that's something I really needed to hear. And so I really appreciate that. And like already we're like 10 minutes in and you've already given me more wisdom than my therapist has in the past 2 months.
Yeah, that's tea. I think that we're all following other people's blueprints, and so my adulthood or this part of my life has been building my own blueprint. Like, what the fuck do I want? And stop looking to the left and the right. It's really just like, what feels good to me? And it may not look like everybody else. It may be completely untraditional, but the rule is, as long as you're not hurting yourself or anybody else, go off, sis.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
as long as you're not hurting yourself or anybody else, it is correct. Because it works for you. It's what makes you happy. It's what brings you joy. It's what lights you up. And that's the most important thing. If people don't know how to figure out their feelings, the easiest thing you can figure out is what lights you up versus what shuts you down. You know the difference between that. And so if a thing is, like, then do that. Whatever that is, do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally, like, connecting with yourself is so scary sometimes too, because like, even being with somebody or even with friends, like, if you're not in that moment of life, like, really loving yourself or like trusting yourself, and then you like turn the focus to either someone you're in a relationship with or your friends, or like you try and focus on them more than yourself, and you just kind of like lose that connection even more. And then when those things end or anything like that, it's even, you're so much further apart, and finding who you are now, not only without that person, but like in this moment in life. Like, what did I take from that?
Yeah.
And what am I moving forward with? And some of those things that maybe you connected with yourself in the past have changed, right? So it's like,
Yes.
it's like some of those wires aren't gonna go in the same like outlet. It's gonna like cross and keep changing until the switchboard is green. But
I think that is such a beautiful thing to remember, which is as a human, you should be growing. And so even if you're in a relationship, my husband and I he wouldn't mind me talking about this. We're 10 years together in June, and we're having conversations about like, what do you want the next 10 years to look like? And do we want it to look like the same thing, right? Like we met at 28 and 27. I'm now 38, 37. Like, those are not the same people, and good. Like, it should not be. Right. Like, if we were the same, wild. But now it requires a lot of questioning of like, okay, well, now who does this version of yourself want to be? And is this the relationship that will support you in doing that or not? And those seem like really scary conversations, and they are. I'm not going to downplay them. Of course they're scary. But I think they're the most important, because what happens is I think people get into relationships to lose themselves, to complete themselves. And what I've said to Matthew from the jump, and will hold true in any relationship, romantic, platonic, familial, is we're whole people coming into a relationship with another whole person. I'm not here to complete you. You are not here to complete me. I think that's the romanticized, television version of things that a lot of us fall into. And then that's the quickest way to lose yourself, is to assume that person is my completion. That's the quickest way to lose yourself, because then you just defer to them or they defer to you. And where are you in that? Where's your agency? Like, you should still be like, I hate hiking. Matthew loves hiking. The toxic version of our relationship would be Matthew to stop hiking or camping or doing the outdoor things because I don't want to do it. A lot of people will say that is how you do a relationship. That's a terrible way to do a relationship. I want to support him in doing his thing. I don't have to hike with you. But like, if that is something that's sacred to you, you should absolutely maintain that. And I want to support you in being able to maintain that. In the same way that something over here might be my thing. And I should absolutely be able to maintain and retain that. Shouldn't have to lose that because we're now in a relationship.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, I think it is very easy to, and not talking about a specific relationship I've been in or anything like that, but I think I've seen friends do it too, and I've seen myself in the past do that as well, where it's just like all of a sudden you kind of wake up. And it's also kind of similar to what you were saying about like art itself too, like with now being in the industry, which it's like, I feel sometimes I forget, because I'm thinking about like, oh, like, how am I going to make money this year? Or what am I going to do? I just did this job that really fulfilled me, but now I need to do this thing. But like, is that even a show that I really want to work on? Is this a thing that I really feel passionate about?
Yeah.
And also it's like, and it does become about, you just like kind of lose yourself to what you're basically, you lose yourself in it. And
to your fear. Right.
Right.
Ultimately to your fear.
Right.
You're afraid of being left. You're afraid you'll never work again. You're afraid, like all of your fears end up taking hold. And what I like to remind myself is, the opposite is also true. So I could never work again, and I could also work forever. I don't know, right? And so, like, where do I want to spend my energy? Do I want to spend it on the thought that says I'll never work again or I'll never be in love again, and like fan those flames, or do I want to fan the abundance flames? Because neither one of them exist right now, and so you get to decide where you put your energy. And if you're bracing for the worst, then yeah, baby, the worst is going to happen. Yeah. Because that's how you're moving.
I saw a video recently of someone saying like all these things and the topic of dating as well. I think it was Nicole Byer, but she's like, what's your advice for being single or anything? And she's like, don't like put these statements with like men are trash. The more you say men are trash, the more you're just going to like lead with that. Like that's just going to be what you say and you believe. The more you keep putting these things where it's like it's me, or like I'm gonna be alone, or like all this forever, the more you say it, the more it's just like
it becomes
manifesting.
real.
It just comes real and becomes like how you carry yourself and like what you believe and those things. So it's like easy to say those things or say those self-deprecating comments, but
it's
really,
our default. It's our default. Exactly. And we are, I've been talking about this because I think that our society is profitable off of us talking to ourselves that way. Like if you for a second imagine a society where everyone loved themselves and felt empowered to be themselves and felt like they weren't working off of somebody else's blueprint but their own blueprint, that's a society that doesn't need to buy all your products, right? That's a society that doesn't need to watch all your shows because they are fulfilled within. So that's why I like try to remind people there is a value in keeping you in a certain way of thinking, which is deprecating. And so it is our job to interrupt that. And it's really difficult because everything around you is telling you if you don't look like this, if you're not this size, if you're not have this much money, that you're not worthy, that you're disposable. And the reality is, as you are right now, you're enough. But you might have to do the extra work to build that muscle, because it's just a muscle. At first, it'll feel really weird. I'm enough. That'll sound weird, right? But I'm not enough sounds easier for you to understand. But it's just a muscle. That I'm not enough has been working since you were a child. How many things? I always use my nose as an example. I have this big, gorgeous nose, but when I was a kid I hated it because people would make fun of it, and so I thought that I had fantasies of getting surgery on my nose, which if you want surgery, do it, but do it for you. Whereas like I would have made that decision because somebody when I was a kid told me that my nose was too big. How many of us have had things said to us on the playground, and as an adult we never interrupted it. We never looked at it. And so our operating system was built on the playground with people saying wild shit to us as kids. And now as an adult, we believe it and we operate from that place. And so the last 2 years for me has been like, what are the fucking things that people told me when I was little that I adopted as truth, that I need to interrupt, that I actually need to engage with so I can detangle and figure out the truth, which the truth is I have a beautiful nose. It's a perfect nose. It's a wonderful nose. I don't got a beautiful nose, right? And that's a small example, but what are the other things? Whether, again, it's about how you look, it's about how much money you have, it's about where you live, like all these things that you go, oh, I'm not worthy unless. You're worthy now. That unless piece was given to you, and you need to do the work to shake that off. Invest in the work to shake that off.
Maybe I'm not gay. I just listen to the kids.
Literally. Me neither, babe.
Maybe elementary school. Maybe I've just been thinking that. Someone told me that once. And I've just been going along with it.
The kids did get that right. They told me that I was gay, and they were.
You were right about that one, bitch.
They ate that. Y'all ate that.
I say maybe I'm not gay with a huge dick in my mouth.
Exactly.
Ponder as you hold it. Yes.
Speaking of dicks, I want to know, because I was reading on your website, which is so beautiful. It's so
Thank you.
Amazing. about the start of Messy Mondays, and you were saying like in the pandemic and everything, and you said you missed dick jokes. So on the topic of dicks, what is your favorite dick joke?
Oh my God, I wish I had a favorite dick joke. What's my favorite dick joke? Well, I have a dick theory that I love, which is the thumb theory, which I've irresponsibly told a lot of people on the internet. But you can tell the size of a dick, the width, the girth, the length, based off of somebody's thumb.
Oh.
Yeah, if you look at their thumb, you can
thumbs up.
Thumbs up. I immediately hide my thumbs.
Me tonight, running around the bar like, show me your thumb.
Yeah. I always to your listeners, it's 90% accurate. Okay. So they're like, sometimes there's a 10% because people are like, no, it's not true. But a lot of people go, that's fucking true.
Yeah.
And it is. And so when I'm at the, if you see me at the bar, I am looking at thumbs.
Yeah. Eyes up here.
Is it just the size of your thumb, or what do you look for?
Well, like, because like some thumbs they're like a little skinnier, or some thumbs are a little more compact, or they're a little thicker. And so you can so usually the dick looks like the thumb. That's my favorite conspiracy theory, and I stand by it.
How did you come upon that?
That's hilarious. How did I? A friend, years ago, a friend shared this with me, and I was like, what? Not true. And then I started doing my research because I am a scientist, and it was true. A lot of the dicks matched their thumbs, and I was like, oh, work.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, that's so before I take a boy home, I ask to see his thumbs.
Yeah, show me them thumbs. Yeah,
show me those fucking thumbs.
Yeah. And wait, so when it comes to sex positivity and everything, and your podcast and plenty of your book, and I mean, obviously there's Messy Mondays on Instagram too. We all know. I guess how did that journey? I mean, obviously we're all sucking and fucking, but when of course, naturally. Yeah. But when did that kind of, I guess, were you always a very sexual person? Was this something that kind of came to light later in life? And then also, was it just I'm not enjoying sex as much, or I want to enjoy it more, or I'm feeling more connected with myself? I guess how did that come to be for you? Yeah.
I would say that if I'm honest with myself, I think there's always been a curiosity around sex, but I also grew up a pastor's kid. And I always say pastor's kids are the horniest motherfuckers you'll ever meet because they're not allowed to be. They're the most repressed and they're the nastiest. And so they're just there wasn't permission to explore that. And certainly being queer, there just wasn't permission. Right. So it kind of lived in its own little box. And I just kind of, stumbled through my teenage years and my 20s, trying to figure out what sex is. Big Mouth, writing on Big Mouth was a saving grace in that, because in a writer's room you're spending 8 hours a day, for some rooms longer, but luckily ours were humane, so 8 hours a day, talking about sex, talking about bodies, to the point where you're desensitized from it, and everyone is sharing different versions of their life and their stories so that we can tell these funny stories. And so that was healing, because we were taking these awful moments in our puberty and turning them into comedy. And that felt healing and loving. And to see the response to Big Mouth, you go, oh, there's a need for this. Yeah, absolutely. And not just the adults, right? Because I joined the show season 4. And by that point, 3 seasons were already out when I joined. And that's how season 4 works. And what they had discovered is that, the show was written for adults, but that a lot of teenagers were watching, to the point where we started doing we would do writer session with we had a relationship with one of the schools here in California, and we would talk to their students just about what they wanted to see and what they were going through. But it's they're hungry for this information too. No one is talking to any of us about how our bodies work or how they operate, or, what it means to get your period, what it means when you get called, so you have a little dick, what it means to be asexual or straight. No one's talking to anyone about it. It's all hidden. And so everyone is going off of terrible information. And so there was a power in that I found writing on that show. So in 2020, my platform got built off of some videos I made around racism, about George Floyd and intersectionality and allyship. But I was doing that for a few months, and then, as we all know, allyship fatigue showed up and all that stuff. And I missed telling dick jokes. It's like, I like to laugh. I can do this stuff, but I like to laugh. And so that's where Messy Mondays, I just went on my stories and said, tell me something good or something messy. And because it was COVID and everyone was home, they were horny as fuck. They weren't fucking as sucking, and they needed to fucking suck.
No, I know.
And so they were telling me their stories, and I was responding to it without any kind of judgment, because working on Big Mouth, you hear a lot of fucking things. And so it wasn't, and then that seemed to connect. And then that also helped me. So being able to show up for others without shame and judgment allowed me to then deepen my exploration. And so then I started what I call my hoe journey, HEAUX. And I define a hoe as someone who commits to the sexual liberation of themselves and others by thoughtfully interrogating their relationship to sex using curiosity, communication, and compassion. And so that is what my corner of the internet is kind of built on, is how do you learn about your sex, rebuild the blueprint, and do it with curiosity, with communication and compassion.
Wow.
I need to figure myself out.
Yes!
Really think.
Tell me more about that. What does that mean to you?
No, just in a sexual way, I feel like way easier to not judge myself behind closed doors. I feel like even at gay parties or anything like that, I get super judgmental of myself in those ways, not letting myself. But I guess I don't know if I'm always or me and Nick both say this, where we wish we could be more we're let's be slutty, you know what I'm saying? But there's
sure.
that barrier to do that almost. But I know it's myself, and I'm do I really not want to do those things or experience those things, or am I telling myself, or has it been told to me always that that's too much or too, not to do that, or the fear of it,
Yes.
So I feel and it's scary to again connect with yourself in those ways and interrogate yourself in those things that you may not even think about. Because you're right, earlier when you're people what are their turn-ons, it's you're making out, eating ass, sucking dick, whatever, but just really internalizing and finding those things out to not only make your sexual pleasures better, but just understanding your body and those wants and needs that sometimes have a big question mark, as it was with content. It's the fear of being super feminine and putting on wigs and all this this interest that bloomed that I was scared to do. But then when I did it, I absolutely loved it, and it helped me as a person. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So not only sex, but different aspects of life, really just internalizing or taking those moments to actually ask the questions that maybe you say out loud all the time and you have the answer, but you're just addicted to not knowing it. You know, you're okay with it, and you don't necessarily really want to find out because you're scared of the answer. So I don't know if that's where I'm at.
Yeah, you're not alone in that. I think that a lot of people are that, and I see myself in that. In the fear of asking the questions, because what are the answers, right? And so a lot of times we'll stay in the uncertainty because that's familiar. But what I always like to remind is that the growth moment is so temporary, that uncomfort is temporary, which will lead to an everlasting peace, if you will. So the willingness to pull those threads, you should expect it to be uncomfortable as fuck. You should expect failure, but failure is code word for growth. And then you will get past it, and it'll feel more familiar. It's that muscle you're building. And then what you end up with is more information about yourself. And if you have one life, I think learning as much about how you operate, both your soul and your existence and also your physical body, will only enhance and optimize the life you get to live. But it's difficult. Let's talk about gays. Gays have a reputation of being very promiscuous and incredibly slutty. And when you don't fall into that, you feel like you are lacking or that you're missing or that you're like doing gay wrong. And that is incorrect. You are not. You may be what I am, which is an emotional girly. And so like some gays really, some gays can like, you know, just pull their dick out and like let anybody suck it and that's it. And beautiful, gorgeous, love that. But some of us are a little more emotional and we need that connection. And that's why the BEMA, the body, environment, mood, accoutrements are important to me, because it's like, yeah, I do need a playlist and a scented candle and I need a bedroom. Like I know I need that. And honestly, what I've learned for myself is when I have that, I'm more able to do the darkroom stuff. Because I feel taken care of in these other ways. Like when I know that like my roster is filled with people that I have emotional connections with, then I don't mind going to a party. I had one party that I went to that was terrible for me, and it was because I had just ended a situationship with somebody, and so I wasn't feeling emotionally connected. And then I went into this dark room searching for that whatever, and of course wasn't going to get it, and so it ended up being an awful experience for me. So I learned, oh, you can't do that slutty thing over there unless this other stuff over here is fine, and that's okay. I think that's the piece of it, is affirming for yourself, like getting curious, asking the question, and then when you find the answer, and if the answer doesn't line up with other people's blueprints, you get to still affirm yourself. And what also helped was, the more I affirmed myself, the more I found other people who were similar. And we're also like, yeah, I can't do that either. Dark room, that party, I can't, what, and like, oh, okay, cool. So like, I'm not alone in this. Like other people are also questioning this, and that just, you know, cause I think the other piece is, and this is about sex or anything, sometimes we feel like we're the only one who's experiencing it. And so we're the only one doing it wrong. And that can be a crushing weight that like stops you from being able to break that weight up, break that brick up. But the more you kind of begin to talk about it, obviously within the context of people you trust, you learn, oh, there's similarities, right? You just said exactly what you said so vulnerably, and I'm saying to you, same, baby, right? And so that is going to do something to your brick that's going to break it up a little bit and go, oh, okay, so like I'm not crazy. Like I'm not alone in this. And that gives you more space to start to explore a little bit. And I always say with the exploration, go slow. Like, baby, don't get tied up in a sling on your first night. Like, that's not your journey, right? You can go very slowly. It might just be making out with somebody on a dance floor. For a lot of people, that is huge. That's huge. To just make out with somebody in public is a lot. Understandably, the trauma of being queer and gay in public is heavy. So some people, even in gay spaces, aren't comfortable making out. That's okay. Just start slow. Start where you are, and then you build from there. The more comfortable you get, the more you'll be willing to explore and try. And the more that you find community, that's everything. You know, find the people who support you on your sex positive journey.
It's funny you say going into it slowly, because I feel like also I'm very much similar to what you were just explaining, like very much the emotional type. I mean, in every aspect of my life. So of course that like goes into my sex life too. It's very much like I need that emotional connection. I'm not just like, and again, literally no judgment. I wish I was more like this. But I'm just not like giving it up super easily, or I'm just not. But I feel like as I've gotten more emotionally connected to myself in my older age, as someone who was 25 and was like, I'm just never going to be like, you know, the slut or like the promiscuous type or whatever, you know, air quotes. As I've gotten more connected to myself, I feel like as I've gotten older, that's actually opened up more. Like, I feel like as of recent-ish or whatever, it's like I'm more so the type of person I just never thought I would be. And it's not even that I feel like when I was younger, I would try to force that, and it never worked, and I always hated it, and I also just kind of never ended up doing it, and I never asked myself, like, is this actually something you want, or is this something you're doing because other people are doing it? And as I've, like, grown up, it's more fun, and that's, like, a part of myself that I never thought would be there, but she's there.
Yes. Honestly, the more comfortable you are, the sluttier you are, right? Like there is a slut in all of us. Like we can all be incredibly slutty. We just need the right parameters to do it in. And your parameters may not be my parameters. And so I think we often look at people and go, wow, they're just fucking in the street. Like a foursome, which is fabulous. Like, damn, y'all are in the street with your dicks out. Go for it. But like, it's like, oh, but that might not be how I operate. But like, get me in a bedroom by myself, like with you or just me. I could be a, so like, that's fine. Like, like I think it's just like,
I'm going to spin my head around in circles, bitch. Yeah.
Okay.
Prepare yourself.
My head and this hole in circles on the dick, period. So I think like you can get there, but you might need different parameters, and that is okay. I think just like affirming for yourself, like how I have sex and how I want to be a sexual being is valid. It doesn't have to look like somebody else's.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Brenda in Scary Movie when she's like talking dirty and she's like, she's like, I'm gonna shit on these walls.
And he's like, I'm gonna fart in your mouth. Yeah.
She's like, too much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Incredible.
No, I mean, by the way,
reference.
like I've definitely been there in those places before where like I'm just like, you know what, I'm gonna fucking say it. I'm gonna say something different, and I say it, and it like doesn't land, and you're just like, okay, well, we'll be back.
We'll be back.
We'll try. Like, yeah. I'm gonna go test this out at the fucking
workshop
comedy
it.
club. Yeah. But that's the thing is that like you do, and it's also like sometimes it's nice to be. It really depends on the situation, but it's nice to be in like a longer term relationship where you try something new, so it's not as like
Sure.
whatever.
Yes.
I mean, not that it always works, but like it's I don't know. I think it's so interesting. I feel like there was also a part of me when I was younger that was like, oh, I'm not judgmental more so, but just like, oh, I would never do that, or like, oh, I'm not that person or whatever. And I feel like it's like hearing you talk about it. And also I think being part of the queer community also, like, it just opens you up to so much more. Like, it's not just this like cookie cutter, like we are, we have to have sex and have a baby and this and that. And I think something that's like beautiful about like growing up and being surrounded by those experiences and like hearing from more people and like understanding other different communities and relationships and being more so just kind of like, even if I'm not into that, like, fuck yeah, like absolutely go for it. And there's like no judgment here. And also, even if like say I hook up with someone and they want to do something that I'm not into, I'm like, literally no
go
judgment.
off.
Go off. But like I think that's like a beautiful thing. And I think that's like kind of your journey and your story is like every single aspect of it is kind of just like learning, growing, and like being more open, like allowing not only yourself to learn, but like for the world to teach you, which I think is just kind of how we should all be living.
Yeah. Like if you want to be able to exist, you should allow other people to exist.
Yeah.
And so just because it's not for me doesn't mean it's not of value, right? Just because it's not for you doesn't mean it's not of value. So, that person that wants to do that thing, that might not be my thing, but I want you to exist as much as I want to exist. So I'm in full support. Again, as long as you're not hurting yourself or anybody else, I'm in full support. And I get to say, that's not my vibe. Right. But like, go be you, baby, and go be great. And I think the more that we can do that, because you realize that the judgmentalness that we have, like the prudeness, the sexual disgust that we have in our culture is ultimately just a reflection of us and a reflection of how free we are. And sometimes being upset at other people's freedom. Right. You see that with transphobia is a perfect example of that, right? Like, you're watching people live their lives, and the experience of that hatred is, how dare you live your life? Right. How dare you be free? And so I think the same thing is true about sexual disgust. When we find ourselves going, ew, they're doing, I can't. It's like, oh, you're watching somebody live their extreme freedom, whatever their freedom is. And you're going, I want to be free too. But I've been told that I got to be in this box and I can only do X, Y, and Z. How come they get to, tie themselves up and piss in each other's mouths? That's crazy. It's like, no, that's not crazy. That's their freedom. Like, you get to be free too. So allow people to exist without judgment, so that you can also exist without judging yourself.
Yeah.
I wish just the world was like, or everybody had that mentality, just to like hear that. It's just like, it's just frustrating right now with everything.
It's incredibly
going on.
frustrating.
And it's also frustrating to feel like we're going backwards. And
oh my God, just like let people live. That's like it's just like, let them live. Just let everybody live their life. Even online, like comments, I'm like, just shut the fuck up. Scroll past. Just let everybody do what they want to do and be happy and like go about your life. There's so many people you're never gonna encounter ever. Like,
why are you wasting energy?
Right.
Use the energy for the ones you do encounter and the love that you could cultivate or joy, or ignore them, just like go away. I don't know, but like, so
I was watching
wild.
this clip of Heath Ledger this morning talk about Brokeback Mountain.
Yes,
Did you see
love
that clip?
I love that clip. It's
It was
some
so-
asshole person in the
like
audience,
a journalist
right? Yes.
asking about like whatever, and he was like, all this energy about two men loving each other, but you're not necessarily spending energy about like the hate in the world. Like, why are you sitting here asking me a question about a story about two men who love each other? Like, we're talking about love here, and you want to spend your energy being disgusted and angry and opposing that when there is so much hate and terror in the world. Use your energy over there. Like, there are so many things to be upset about. Trans people are not one of them. Right?
No.
There are so many things to be pissed off about in the world. Queer folks are not one of them. So why are if you're spending all that energy here and you're just letting all the other bullshit over here happen, like, what is going on?
Right.
Like, that's not, the math is not mathing, as we would say.
And I think that's why, like, I mean, being surrounded by, first of all, having you truly be a public figure, but also just being surrounded by people like you. It's just knowing that there are people who put their entire being into trying to spread that positivity, that joy, and also helping people. I think with you, with something that's so wonderful. I mean, we've already seen it in this episode, but it's allowing people to think differently in ways. And by the way, I'm not saying I have no problems with any people, but I'm saying think differently about myself. And I think in like understanding myself better and experiencing that relationship with myself, it's then I'm able to put more love out into the world, right? It's like because of, and this is like a huge, applause and compliment to you. It's just, I think that, a huge part of your purpose and your journey and something we're so lucky to be surrounded by and know about is that we can learn that way. You don't have to be set in your ways. You can be a completely different person the day you're born or when you're 25 years old versus 80 years old. It's we're always evolving, but ultimately it's like fixing that relationship with you that allows you to then be the kind person that we all should all want to be.
Yes, anything that isn't growing is dead. I think that's a Lauryn Hill quote. Yeah, you should want to grow and get better and engage, and the career stuff, the professional stuff, the politics stuff is also like you're not going to leave this life with those things. What you will leave with is your human experience, who you loved and who loved you, and so like. That is where, like, that's actually the real shit. It's not how much money you made or the house you lived in. Which, we're in Los Angeles. Like, it gets very confusing here. But it is about, who you loved and who loved you, and nurturing that, and learning to love yourself in a world that is trying desperately and succeeding at making you hate yourself. Loving yourself is a radical act, and it is the only thing that you should really invest in. That's where everything else can spring from. But the investment in how do I love this, everything that's happened to it, everything that has, good, bad, and different that's come upon my experience and my existence. How do I reparent it? I had a mentor who said, if you were your own parent, what advice would you give yourself? And I hold that so dear because I think that some of us are still waiting for our parents to parent us. And it's like, your parents are your parents and they did whatever, your family's your family, whatever. Now you have your life in your hands. So what will you do for you? How will you take care of you? Will you call yourself names? Will you rob yourself of joy? Will you keep yourself in a little box? Or will you ask the question, who would I be if society never got its hands on me, and start to crack that thing open and nurture yourself? How do you talk to yourself? Are you going to tell yourself you're not worthy, you're not enough? Or are you going to talk to that little part of you and say, babe, I got you. You're special. You're something. Like really being intentional about how you love yourself, and love yourself first and best. If you love yourself first and best, you will love everybody else incredibly well.
Damn. Fuck.
Yeah, literally.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, and just like allowing yourself to love yourself, like, and just like not being just because sometimes you can. I don't know, for me, you can like look at something and be like I fucking killed that, and then you're like, but there's this and this and that. It's like, no, just like live in that, like you feel like you're feeling feel the
Yeah,
cut. Like,
feel the
it.
cut, babe.
Like,
Yeah,
there's
feel
nothing
it.
bad about it.
Yeah.
Again, like, if you're not hurting anybody or anything like that, it's like,
Yeah.
feel that, like, love for yourself. And, like,
Yes.
feel like it's sometimes the world is telling you, like you said, not to.
It
Like,
wants to
that
keep
it's
you
too
small.
much. You're, like, cocky or arrogant or anything.
Yes.
Which there is, levels to it, but
Sure.
just like enjoying how you feel and not like judging yourself for feeling happy or like good about yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I say be full of yourself.
Yeah.
When it's not good. But
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
when it gets to a point where like it's not good. Like
Yeah.
do be full of yourself. Be proud of yourself. Love yourself. You can't expect because you're looking for it from everywhere else. The ABVs, acceptance, belonging, validation. We want it from everybody else. And so we contort ourselves so that other people will accept us, will validate us. You do it. You do it and your life will change.
Yeah. Wow. I feel like
Honestly, like I feel like you should send us both a bill.
and all of our listeners.
Like honestly,
You're like, oh, babe, I was planning on it.
Oh, babe, the invoice
Yeah.
is in your inbox already. It's ready.
exactly. I'm like,
Yeah. No, this has truly been
So-
I feel like you came on and you were our guest, and I feel like I'm your guest.
no, truly, I got so many times I'm like smiling with like seeing Nick smile because it's so like everything you were saying is just like we are going through similar things, and just hearing the things that like you again like have trouble even thinking about, or just like being kind to yourself in hard times. So like it's so appreciated everything you said today, and like really just such a beautiful light and a beautiful speaker and like so excited for everybody to get to hear this because this like honestly changed even the day like just like hearing so many of these things. It's like so much to reflect on, and also excited to start that journey in whatever way that is, to continue to learn about myself and connect with myself as we continue to grow. And change.
Yes.
So thank you so much.
So, thank you
Thank
so
y'all
much
for having me.
And of course, and please, obviously, everyone knows who you are, but please let them know. Anything coming up? Obviously, your show at the end of the year, but also where to find you. God, I feel like I just got a fucking massage. A brain
The shoulders
massage.
just dropped a little bit.
Great.
Where can you find me? You can find me on my podcast, Tell Me Something Messy, which is every Thursday, wherever you get your podcasts. You can find me on Instagram at Brandon Kyle Goodman, or on my website, brandonkylegoodman.com, which will take you to wherever the
Everywhere.
fuck I am. Everywhere.
Yeah, truly, it will take you. It'll take you wherever you want to go.
Wherever
baby.
you wanna go,
yeah,
babe.
Yeah, the sky's the limit.
Yes.
Well, thank you. We
Thank you.
love you so much. And
Love y'all both so much.
to our listeners, I guess you're welcome.
Yeah.
But we will see you again next week.
See you next week. Love you all.
Bye.
Bye.